speaking of being busy, I'd love to hear the story of how you got Roosters off the ground during COVID again.
Kind of like how I kept it going during COVID.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we opened in January 2017, and from day one, I was trying to stack cash and have a reserve, have an emergency fund, because that's the nature of the economy. It's up and down. You never know what's around the corner. You never know what is going to happen in the future. A recession. Of course, I didn't predict a pandemic, but I was like, there's something's going to happen. There's going to be a recession. There's going to be a downturn. We need to have
Right.
emergency savings. So started building that emergency savings up. So by the time COVID hit, we had a little cushion, which was good, but it wasn't enough to like survive all of COVID, but it was enough to like we could kind of breathe a little bit. But so when the shutdown happened in March of 2020, well, for one thing, the week before the shutdown, we were super busy. There was a big convention in town, and we were jam packed. And it was like you were hearing about COVID kind of in the media, but it was like, damn, we're busy as hell. And that Friday was it was Art Walk, and there was a big convention. We're slammed, but the convention was supposed to stay until Sunday.
Right.
But because of COVID, they left a day early. They left Saturday, and so Saturday wasn't as busy as we thought it was going to be. And then we're closed Sunday, and then Monday was really slow. Nobody was out, and then Tuesday was like hardly anybody was out, and then they announced shutdown. So it was like so crazy. We went from like slammed all week, one of the busiest Fridays we've ever had, to do, 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 do.
Right.
Like within a couple of days, boom, shut down. Like it was like crazy. I called my staff in to the restaurant on that Wednesday, and told them that we were closing, and I didn't know what the future held. And I said, y'all need to hold on to every dollar you got. We don't know, so
Right.
we don't know what's happening. I went back and cried in my office. I mean, that was an emotional thing to have to do, like lay off almost 30 people
Right.
and say, I don't know what's happening. I don't know the future. I don't know if there's going to be unemployment. I have no idea what's happening. But we were shut. We were closed about a month at that time, and then we reopened and did the takeout thing. We still couldn't open the inside dining room, but we started doing like I had bought a catering van actually a few months before this, and I had developed an app a few months before this. It's like sometimes like things just kind of happen, and like I was just developing an app because I was like, oh, it'd be cool to have an app,
It was for
order
Roosters.
online. Yeah, for
Yeah.
Roosters, yeah. And I bought a catering van because I had some excess cash, and I was like, yeah, it'd be cool to have a branded van or whatever, and stuff.
What were you going to
And
use
thank
the
God I
catering?
had those things because it really helped.
What were you going to use the van for
Just
initially?
like it was more of a marketing thing. Just wrap it, with our like logo and stuff,
And just to drive around.
drive around town, yeah, and make deliveries and stuff like that. But then it became crucial during COVID because then it was like when we reopened after that month of being closed, we were doing like delivery to houses, like meal kits, taco meal kits and stuff like that to
Right.
houses, and then doing takeout and curbside and all that
Wow.
stuff, and and then having the app was cool because people could just order or pay online. They could just go and pick it up, and they wouldn't
Yeah.
have to come in the restaurant or whatever. And so we did that for a couple months, but then so we reopened doing takeout mid-April, and then by June I saw the writing on the wall that okay, what helps downtown Mobile during the summer is conventions and concerts
Right.
because people that live in Mobile leave town.
During the summer.
During the summer, it's a ghost town. The
Really?
colleges are shut down.
Right.
Places like here, Spring Hills,
Right.
USA, and then people are going to their bay houses, their beach houses. They're going to Europe. They're going out of town.
Right.
Just people will just leave the town.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so without the conventions and concerts, downtown would be a ghost town. But thank God we have that stuff, so it does
Right.
help. But I knew that without the conventions and concerts, because of COVID, that it was going to be dead. So I voluntarily closed all of July and half of August. But I knew when school started, because they were doing the unemployment and stuff, and if we were open, my employees were, I mean, I could barely pay them anything, so we were just doing takeout. It was like
Right.
takeout wasn't cutting it.
Right.
It was like barely breaking us even, not even breaking us even.
And by that time, the government was
They
saying
were doing the unemployment.
Right.
Everybody's getting $800 a week, and there was no way my employees were going to make $800 a week doing takeout. And so
Right.
I was like, you know what? The right thing to do would be just to close.
Right.
That way, we would eliminate any overhead of like food and labor. I wouldn't have to buy it. I worked a deal out with my landlord to reduce my rent, and just try to reduce the amount that it would cost us to close. and then allowed my staff to get the unemployment for that month and a half. And then when school was starting that year, I knew, okay, well, school's starting, people are going to come back to Mobile, things are going to start to maybe get back to normal, hopefully. And so we reopened at that point. And
I really want to hear how you were so determined or to keep Roosters open during that time. I remember you mentioned like just working. It may have been also in 2017 when you were opening up, just working these crazy long hours to keep the restaurant afloat. I think anybody respects that type of spirit.
well, it was do or die. I mean, I put everything on the line for that restaurant.
And how are you so confident
Like
about
failure
it?
was not an option.
Yeah, and how are you so confident about?
Naivety, just
Yeah,
I didn't know any better. I was just
right.
like, I've always kind of had this attitude, especially when I was younger, of like, let's just try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I mean, I just like, you know, kind of a little like naivety and a little just like
Delusion is what a lot of people say.
delusion.
But seriously, like a lot of successful people credit their delusion.
Yep. Yep, that's. I would say that might be true. I don't know if I fall into the successful category, but the, you know, not taking any risk is in of itself a risk.
Yeah,
The risk of not doing anything,
yeah,
and so I've kind of just been in. Even when I was younger, it was just like, yeah, I'll just drop everything and go do this other thing and try it out and see if it doesn't work. I'll go find something else to do, and so it was like, I don't think too much about all the possible outcomes and and what might happen and what might not happen. I think that really holds people back a lot, whether it's in relationships or personal life or business or investing. It's like people to overanalyze stuff.
right.
You can overanalyze yourself into doing nothing, and a lot of people do that. And
Definitely a
and
victim of that.
yeah, you said you're a victim of
Oh
it?
yeah,
No, you're not.
no, trust me.
No, you dive head first. I know you. You're into all kinds of stuff. I mean, you do have to mitigate risk. I mean, of course, you got to mitigate risk, and you gotta weigh options. I mean, I'm not saying I don't weigh any options, but at the same time, I just like let's just do it, man. And just,
Right.
But then I am guilty of doing that, and then getting in a situation where you're like, oh no, I'm really deep into this now. I'm like, what am I gonna do now?
Yeah, they're definitely a victim of that too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think me and you are a little similar in that. Like, I like to do a lot of different stuff. You like to do a lot of different
Yeah.
stuff, and then sometimes it kind of weighs on me. I'm like, man, I'm really trying. I'm doing a lot here.
right.
Should
And you have to
can I
battle
sustain
between
that?
like feeling like you quit on something versus making the right decision.
Yeah. Yep. Very much so. Yep. Very true.
Yeah. And then your support system, like my parents will get on me for it. It's
Oh,
like,
really?
like you're spreading yourself too thin,
Mhm.
but you only live once. It's.
I think I
Um,
told you that before. I was like, man, but
Right.
you're young. I was like, dude, do it while you're young, man.
right. And
Because it
speaking
gets
of
harder the older you go.
right, and speaking of doing it while you're young, looking back to your 20s, what are like 3 events in your 20s that greatly impacted you?
Meeting my wife, um, having my first child, definitely, 100%. Which I was 29 when that happened. Um, and getting into the restaurant business because I was in my 20s before I got in the restaurant business. So I would say if I had to pick 3, those were definitely the 3 that
Right,
took me in paths
right.
that I did not expect to go on. Yeah.
And those are such like crucial moments of life.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I mean, those great answers, of course. Um, what type of because I think a younger audience has like heavy pressure to fulfill crucial moments like that. Like those are
You can't force it though. It's just
you can't. That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. It's like the heavy pressure to fulfill your role as a human. To commit yourself to something, to reproduce,
hmm
to create a family.
hmm
Were you ever nervous about that, and how did you cope with it?
Well, for one, I never thought that I was the type of person to have kids, and
Really?
I was never on my like agenda of like I'm gonna have kids. And so it, it kind of blindsided me. And I mean, I was like, I never want to have kids up until I was ready.
Mhm.
And so, but once I was ready, it's kind of like, once again, just diving in. Once I thought about it, I was like, okay, let's do this.
That's
Like, it
good.
was like not a lot of like,
Yeah.
it wasn't a lot of like, should we not? I was like, once it got into my mind, I've always kind of been that way, for good or bad, I don't know. But once, once I get an idea and I want to, it's like, I'm pretty hard headed and I just like, I want to do it now. Like, I'm
Right.
just going to do it. And it's not like a lot of like thinking about it really.
Right.
So it was like, what put it in my mind having kids was my older brother came to visit. He had kids. It was actually the last time I saw him in person, because we lost him in Afghanistan in 2009. But
Sorry to hear that.
but in 2008, let's see, it was been probably early 2008, maybe late 2007. He came to visit and he had his kids with him, and we went to the Exploring Mobile, and his kids were playing in like the kid area, and he and I was dating my wife, Faye, and he was like, pulled me to the side and he was like, y'all should have kids, man. She's awesome. Y'all. And I was like, and I never even thought about it before. I was like, oh, really? And he's like, dude, it's amazing. He was like, and my brother was never the type to have kids either. He was like, I'm not having kids. He's a real tough guy, but he was like, it literally like changed my life. It was amazing. You should definitely think about it. And literally that put the seed in my head.
Right.
And it was like,
All right, let's do it today.
let's have kids. Yeah. That was basically, yeah. I mean,
Right.
it was like, I talked to her, I was like, let's, and
Yeah.
she was like, okay. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
And
That's
then boom, 9 months later, just about, we had Maria.
Yeah. I've kind of engaged in journaling and just trying to get to a kind of I told Ethan it's like I'm trying to 0.5 life, like as opposed to get caught in it, like but it's led to a lot of overthinking and whatnot, and I think the most important motto to have, and it's probably why they're so successful, is just do it by Nike.
Yeah.
I mean, like, no matter, I can think of
Tons of reasons why not to go work out or why not to do this.
that
Why-
too, and but also like just all these different philosophies of like what makes somebody successful, and the best ways to think about something, like, man, I should do this because this, or but just do it, keeping it simple, and it's got some Socrates in it, some stoicism, just it's the best thing to have on your mind, because it allows you to deal with everything else. You know that you're going to attack it regardless.
Mhm.